What's up, guys? I'm actually doing a voiceover for this video, so just bear with me. I had a lot of noise in the house when I was actually recording, and figured it'd be easier just to kind of talk over everything as I went through the clips. I already prepped the fish, as you'll see. Didn't figure anybody really want to watch me do that. I soaked it in salt water for a few hours to help draw a little bit more of the blood out. And then after that, I soak it in buttermilk for about an hour. The first thing you're going to see here is the white or the cream sauce that I make for it. You can Google all kinds of different fish taco sauce. This is just one I happened to find online. It's a really simple sauce. I'll walk through the different ingredients that you see listed here as I prepare the sauce. For the fish itself, I use just a few ingredients: flour, cornmeal, salt, pepper, and a little bit of paprika. And I actually did throw in some chili powder, but you don't have to do that. But either way, let's get started, and I'll go through each thing with you. Okay, so the first ingredient for the fish taco sauce is mayonnaise. The recipe that I Googled and used for this particular video calls for 1 cup of mayonnaise. I put actually a little bit over a cup. I like my sauce a little bit creamier, but that's completely up to you. You kind of make this to the taste. So either way, about a cup of any mayonnaise. Basically, what I got was on sale at Food Line. So whatever you have in the refrigerator, if you want to get some, whatever works for you. The next ingredient is freshly chopped cilantro. Actually, I need to look and see just how much of that I actually use in this. I use 2 tablespoons, so that's about 2 tablespoons I got there. I guesstimated at it. Once again, you really make this to the taste. You can put a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever you like. Next ingredient is going to call for, just bear with me, I am reading this off my phone and it is not in order what I'm doing. 1 tablespoon of honey. And one thing I did leave out that in the video by accident was the chipotle chilies and the adobo sauce. It calls for 2 of those in this sauce, which I completely forgot to show in the video. I apologize for that, but that is required. That's one of the key ingredients you're going to want to make sure you add to this. Obviously, you're going to need to salt it to taste. I had actually salted throughout the video and just went back and add a little bit more just to show it, but pinch of salt. Next thing I use is a lime. I put a whole lime in there, squeeze it by hand. I wouldn't recommend doing more than a lime. Might make it a little bit too sour, but 1 lime seems to be just right for this amount of sauce. Okay, now that we've got everything added, blend it all together. Any type of food processor should work fine for you. You just want to blend it up really finely. You want it to be creamy. You don't want chunks of pepper or cilantro, real leafy, or anything like that in there. So just make sure you blend it really, really well. You want it to be able to pour out of there literally like a sauce. Make sure you also scrape down the sides. I know my blender is bad about throwing everything up on the side and leaving chunks up there, so you want to come back. Make sure you get all that scraped down back into the bottom of the blender so you can blend everything real smoothly. Okay, once you finish blending your sauce, I pour it in a little container, and I like to toss it into the fridge. That way it stays cold and really cools down a little bit more. To me, that makes it better for serving. Next thing I do is beat a couple eggs. I use eggs and the buttermilk for my catfish. I know some people like to use just eggs, some people like to use just buttermilk. I use a combination of both. And make sure you beat the eggs really well. Don't leave it kind of gobby in there, or you're going to have gobs of egg yolk sticking to your catfish, and that will not work well when you're dipping it in the flour and cornmeal mix. So just make sure they're really running. Basically, it's almost where you could look like you could drink it. They'll be ready once they're like that. All right, so the next thing I do is I'll get a Pyrex dish. a flour and cornmeal. Some people like all cornmeal, some people might want all flour, some might want 50-50. I do about a half a cup or so of flour, and then I'll do in between a half and 3/4 cups of cornmeal. Like I said, that's all just kind of, I believe, personal preference. I know you can Google fried catfish. There's so many different ways of doing it. I don't know what's the best way. This is the way I do it, and to me, it's pretty good. I've fixed it for several people, and nobody's complained so far. Okay, the next thing I do, grab you a fork or something and just kind of mix all the cornmeal and flour together, get it worked in really well. That way you don't have a glob of flour or a glob of cornmeal when you start dipping your fish down into this. So then next thing I do, I like fresh crushed black pepper. Put as much as you want. Just keep in mind that to me, when you're first putting it on there, it looks like you're putting a lot of pepper, but it's really not. Because obviously when you mix it up into the flour and you're dipping the fish in there, not a whole lot's really getting on there, but you do want some. So when you think you have enough, put a little bit more. That way you will at least be able to taste it a little bit. Okay, so next thing I do is I add a little salt to the flour and cornmeal mixture. Salt's going to be about like the pepper. A lot of it will not make it to the fish as well, just because it's all mixed down in here. And then personally, I like to throw in some paprika. I'm using smoked paprika here, just to add a little bit of extra flavor to it. I don't put a whole lot, but you can taste it a little bit, and you don't need too much of it. And then, like I said, I didn't put this in the ingredients, but I did put a little bit of chili powder. Didn't put a whole lot because a lot of people don't like heat. If it's just me, I'll put more because a little bit of heat is good to me. But either way, that's just something added. You can put in there for something extra. Once you've got all that added, mix that all in really well. That way, once again, you're not dipping your catfish in there and you're getting a whole gob of one seasoning or the other on there, because you'll definitely know it when you bite into that if you get a whole big gob of chili pepper or paprika or something on there. Okay, once you've got all that ready, you're ready to start dipping your catfish into the mixture. Make sure you shake off as much of the buttermilk as you can so it's not too wet. Back into the bowl, and then I put mine in the egg. Make sure it's coated really well, let the excess drip off. And there is probably a million different ways you could do this. Some people put it in a bag with your flour and everything and shake it. Some people probably do it individually. This is how I do it. If you have a better suggestion, feel free to leave a comment, but either way, I'll dip a few, drop them in the flour mix, then make sure you coat them really well, and then start loading them onto the plate, and do this over and over until you've gone through all of them. As your fingers start to get some of the buildup on them, you might have to wash your fingers off. That way you're not dropping gobs of it back into your egg mix and making that kind of turns into more of a paste than runny eggs. But either way, just dip and repeat until you get the plate full. I do want to add that when you do get everything on the plate, you want to let your catfish sit for, I think they say, I'll let it sit longer than this, but they say at least 10 minutes, and let the flour kind of get in the egg and milk all kind of get absorbed and stick onto the fish. You'll see as it sits there, the flour goes from looking real white and dry to it has that wet look. But if you don't do this, when you put it into the oil to fry it, you might have issues with the coating coming off in there, and you won't have that nice breading covering the whole fish. Next thing I do is I use cheap vegetable oil. I picked this up at, I think, Food Line for like $1.89 or something. Either way, you want to fill a pot. If you're doing this on the stove, you want it to be about 2.5–3 inches deep. and then you're going to want to heat that up to 350 degrees. I've got a cheap thermometer I set in there just to make sure I'm at temp. You don't want it too hot, obviously, or you're gonna burn your breading before your fish is cooked, and if it's too cold, you're gonna have issues with another reason your breading might not stay on, or it doesn't cook right. So you want to keep it right there at 350 degrees. Another thing to keep in mind is, I learned this the hard way, don't put too much fish in there when you are frying it. If you try to fill the whole pot up of fish, you're going to bring that oil temperature way down and it will not cook right. So cook a handful of pieces at a time, keep an eye on the temp. I was usually cooking anywhere from somewhere around 6 nuggets, depending on the size. You might be able to get a couple more, or even less if they're larger. But either way, about 6 nuggets at a time, and it would stay right there at 350 the whole time I was cooking it. So if you're cooking a big batch, it might take a little while, but if it's just cooking for you or just a few people, cooking 6 at a time isn't too bad. Best thing would be is, and I really knew this myself, is actually picked up a fryer that I can set up outside with my grill, and definitely fry them a whole lot faster. But you're just cooking a small fish or something, just a little something for a little get together with a few people, this usually is pretty efficient. So either way, that's a quick video of me frying some fish to make some fish tacos. For the sides, use some cheese, some red cabbage, a little bit of lime to garnish, and some chopped tomatoes. Other than that, real simple to do, real cheap really, and a lot of fun. So I appreciate everybody watching the video, and feel free to leave some comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. Thanks again, guys.